I am known in the religion of rage. Worship me as a pool of blood in your hands. Drink me deep, its bitter fury that boils and burns. Your knives were small, but they were many. I am named in the religion of rage. Worship me with your offhand cuts, long after I am dead. It's a song of dreams crumbled to ashes. Your wants overflowed, but now gape empty. I am drowned in the religion of rage. Worship me unto death and down to a pile of bones. The purest book is the one never opened. No needs left unfulfilled on the cold, sacred day. I am found in the religion of rage. Worship me in a stream of curses. This fool had faith, and in dreams he wept. But we walk a desert rocked by accusations, where no man starves with hate in his bones.
Hello, and welcome to the Legendarium Green Team's Malazan series. Welcome to episode 1 of the final book, The Crippled God.
Ooh!
My kid!
I am in desperate need of sleep, and I'm joined by Befuddled Panda,
Hello, hello, hello.
Janeth as a boy,
Hi.
and Ashaman.
Hi, everybody.
So yeah, we're going to read chapters 1 through 7 of The Crippled God today, which is also known as books 1 and 2. This book has 7 chapters, just like Gardens of the Moon, or 7 books, just like Gardens of the Moon, unlike the other
We're
books.
gonna read it, starting from chapter 1.
Did I say read?
You did.
Like I said, I'm in desperate need of sleep. So spoilers for that. Anything anyone want to say before Ash starts his summaries?
We're so ready to be done.
Yeah, for sure. But I have a question.
Yeah.
Does the content of chapter 7 warrant telling Panda what my prediction from Memories of Ice was that I wasn't allowed to
I think so.
say on the podcast? Okay.
What was it?
I think definitely.
Yeah? Okay. So, my prediction for the end of the series from Memories of Ice that I've been holding on to all this time because it got spoiled was that the end game of the 10th book would be releasing the Crippled God rather than killing him.
Yeah.
Because of Drake and Brood's conversations about the topic. And I was like, well, that would be the compassionate thing.
Right.
Duh, duh, duh. And then I, right before our episode, saw a video that spoiled it. So
Oh.
that's
I
why I
see.
didn't
Who
predict
made this
it.
video, did you say?
So
Yeah, who made this video?
I'm so sick of throwing this guy under the bus for this. It was AP Canavan, and I think his initial instinct was correct that I should have assumed from the title of the video that it would be full spoilers. Like that, I think it's my bad. He thinks it's his bad, and he changed the video to have spoiler warnings. And he's like deathly embarrassed about this, and I think it's me who should be embarrassed. It's my fault. So I hate, like, every time I bring it up in any context, he starts like falling over himself, apologizing. And I
No,
feel
we're too positive on AP here. We need to start leveling some harsh criticisms against him to balance it out. So yeah, this is totally AP's fault. He ruined the entire series for you. You now, of course, hate it.
I don't feel that we ruined
We have to use that leverage to get him to appear on more episodes.
Yeah, well, I don't think we actually
As
need
if
more
we need it.
leverage.
So, we know you're busy, but do you remember that one time?
And he's on the East Coast now. So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah. Scheduling will be so much easier.
Should we go to chapter 1?
We should absolutely go to chapter 1, Panda. Chapter 1. The Tice Leosin feed on the blood of a dragon. Cotillion bargains with the dragons trapped in curled Emerlon. Udnos and the Imas leave the refugium. Male and Cruel try to figure out how to save the world. Calm imprisons Icarium. Janos defends a fortress against assailed forces and speaks with Shadow Throne. Apsalara tries to bring Nimander out of his funk.
That was a great scene, by the way. The scene with Apsalara and Nimander. I really liked their interaction.
I really liked their interaction too.
I'm honor bound to dislike it.
I felt like in this scene, it's probably just me, how I was reading it. It just seemed like this was a different kind of Nimander than the previous books Nimander that I saw.
He's a little more snarky.
Yeah, I think his attitude is just a bit different. He's less like self-deprecating here.
Well,
He always just reminds me of like a teenager, like a teenager in his like
Mood
almost
swings.
an adult. Yeah, he's just like kind of all mopey. He's like, oh, it's so hard ruling entire people. I'm never going to live up to an Animander. I think that I would like his character more if he was actually not like hundreds of years old.
Oh, okay.
It's very good to forget that when reading him.
I still
Yeah.
think he was fairly self-deprecating here, though, because I got the impression he was still maybe a little more confident than in Toll the Hounds, but still feeling like overwhelmed by the responsibilities,
Mm,
and then lashing
okay.
out because of that. If that makes sense.
He's definitely more angsty in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's under a bit more pressure.
Yeah.
We got Karsa section, which is fun.
Oh yeah, Karsa finally seals the deal with Samardev.
Oh, fine. I'll do it. Don't break me.
Oh my gosh.
And that's the only point of that scene, is to let you know that that happened.
Yeah, they're now boning.
That's what we've been waiting for like what, 4 books now?
Now they meet in House of Chains,
They meet in the House
Don't
of
they?
Chains.
don't they?
No.
Or no, it is.
No,
It is
no,
Bone
it's
Hunters.
Bone
Yeah,
Hunters,
it is
yeah.
Bone Hunters. Yes,
There-
yes, yes, yes.
There is a scene which worried me in Orb Scepter Throne that starts talking about them. I don't know if it references what happens here, but he starts describing Karsa and Samar, and I'm like, no, Cam, you're not allowed to write scenes with Karsa in them. And he didn't, thankfully. It was just like rumors about Karsa and Samar, basically. And I was like, oh, thank God. But like, only Steve's allowed to write that character, right?
There was an interesting conversation between Cotillion and Edgewalker.
That's what I was about to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
God.
what is Cotillion planning? Is he gonna fail? Is failing good? What do you think it is?
Is Edgewalker just full of it?
I can't
Walker.
tell if I like Edgewalker or not.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I've flipped between them. I right now I'm on a I don't like Edgewalker because I
Okay.
think he's just totally full of himself. I don't know. I'm willing to have my mind changed on him.
I'm intrigued by Edgewalker, and I want to know more about him. Her? Does Edgewalker
It?
have a gender?
Yeah. I think that's just a mystery that I'm just gonna have to be okay with not knowing too much and just find out. Hopefully find out at the end of this book.
Hmm.
For more on Edgewalker, read Knight of Knives by Ian C.S.
So if I had read that,
Oh
I had
no,
read that, I would know more now.
no.
No,
Oh.
Little.
like a little. You don't get
barely any.
much. Yeah.
Okay,
Edgewalker is a mysterious character.
I believe
Okay.
Steve has promised that by the end of Carcanus, we'll know the true identity of Edgewalker.
Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me?
That makes me think I already know it from Fall of Light.
Oh gosh. Okay, whatever. Fine.
Yeah.
I have to be okay with
Sorry,
it.
Panda. There will be loose ends at the end of the series.
There will be, yeah.
So just be prepared. Not everything's gonna wrap up.
I really like this scene because it called back to the scene in the Bone Hunters where I was like so intrigued by the same exact
Mhm.
setting and these same two characters being there talking to them, and it was nice to see that revisited.
Mhm.
And also the confirmation of, I don't think I voiced this in the episodes from Reaper's Gale because I didn't know how much it was like spoilers, but like I was like, Makra is a dragon. Because remember, Makra was talking to Makra was talking to the Aquitor. What is her name?
Seren Padak, right?
Yeah, her. And I wanted to say I think Makra's a dragon, but I didn't know how much I was like relying on Crippled God and Garganus for that kind of. So I didn't say it, but it's confirmed here that Makra is a dragon, and I guess I just forgot that it was confirmed here. I was like,
Was that
oh,
this
okay.
chapter?
Hmm?
Oh, is that? Yeah, they go to the dragons
Yes.
of this chapter. Gotcha.
They talk. That's the interaction with Cotillion and Edgewalker is with the three
Well,
dragons.
Well, they have an
and-
interaction, and then Cotillion goes
Yeah,
to
the
talk to
very
the dragons in a
first
separate
scene
section.
in the book is Cotillion and Edgewalker, and then later they go talk to the dragons.
Oh, I thought it was all the same scene. Oh, whoops.
No.
I forget
Ooh.
who said it, but they were talking about a she and her kind. But she and her kind had stayed wrapped about the base of that vast tree, forgotten, crushed down. And in their place beneath stones, bound in roots and dark earth, they were witness to the corruption of justice, to its loss of meaning, to its betrayal. Gods and mortals, twisting truths, had in a host of deeds stained what once had been pure. And my thinking was, are they talking about Kettle? Or is that
No,
wrong?
they're talking about the
No.
Assail, I believe. The Forkerl Assail.
But isn't Kettle?
Oh, like has the soul of
Yeah.
as Forkerl Assail. Yeah. I think so. Although, yeah. The Kettle never seems to be very interested in questions of justice when she's around. But I don't know.
But it
Yeah.
just said she and her kind.
I'm gonna give a very Panda-like confession and say I really read through these 7 chapters very, very quickly, on top of being very sleep deprived.
Yes. Understood.
Yeah.
Last night I could not get to sleep, and I read all of chapter 7 on sleep timers that I kept turning back on audio, and then it was like book 3, and I was like, it's 2 in the morning. I have to change books now. And I was like, so I finished it all in one go, like
Wow.
from midnight to 2 a.m. And I was like, yeah, chapter 7 was great. I haven't slept. Not quite as bad as you, Hurin, but
Okay, Panda, I have a question to ask you.
Yeah.
Do you know what is up with Leosin at this moment?
Nope.
Okay, great. I'm going to catch you up because it's kind of important. So you
Okay.
remember in House of Chains, I think it was the House of Chains, when Lorik he's talking about how Oseric is not with the Leosin anymore. There is a familiar in his
Right.
place impersonating him. Okay, so
Okay.
as the Imass kill that thing, basically. That's what those ones were doing in the House of Chains. They came back from it. I believe Lorik put another one in its place, but then the Leosin figured it out. They figured out there's an imposter who's pretending to be their god. Their god has kind of screwed off without them. They're feeling like super angry about this. So at some point between House of Chains and this book, there has been like an enormous civil war in their warren. And
Okay.
the radicals have taken power. Like it's like it could probably be like its own book in itself, that civil war. Radicals have taken power. They're like, okay, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make ourselves into gods. We're gonna have like this dragon be our god now. They have fed on its power. They killed it. They fed on its power. They are soul taking them. Some of them are soul taking themselves now, and they're like, okay, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna find our ancient enemy, the Andy. We're gonna kill them all, and we're gonna like bring the light of justice to all the realms now. And that's what
Okay.
their goal is in this book.
Okay.
All of them but one that drank the blood became soul taken.
Okay. I vaguely remember when was it Corvo and Boccaling went into a war and like there was a chained fiery demon thing in House of Chains?
Buckley and Corbel Brooch were not in House of Chains.
No. Okay. Well, somebody
it
went
was
into the
Sorry, Yol and Pearl went into
Leosin Warren,
the Leosin Warren for like a hot minute.
and they saw there was like a chained demon, and that was the imposter.
I think so. I don't remember the details of who saw what and how we got each piece of information that Ash just gave you. But
When we were with Troll and Onrak, they were traveling with the EMAS. And we got
Ah,
some of that POV when the EMS were going into the Leos and Warren and killing their
right.
false god.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
and then there was another part with Yil and Pearl. They went through the Imperial Warren and ended up in the Leosin Warren for a minute. And
Okay.
then there was stuff with Lorik.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason that the Leosin haven't really been out is because their warren has largely been sealed off by, I think it was a Sark. He kind of just like, okay, you guys just stay there. You're too unruly. You're too unruly. I'm gonna go do whatever it is I find important to do. He like Animander, he kind of rejects his worshippers.
You know what Erikson really needs? He needs recaps. You know, when you watch TV shows and they're like, previously.
Yeah, I've seen a few books do that. I really don't want it to be part of the narrative. I'd rather it to be
No.
supplemental at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
But a few books do it pretty well, like book 4 of the Babel series. They do it in a really cool in-world style, as if it's like a newspaper article. No, it's a review of a play of the events that happened in the first 3 books as a newspaper article.
Nice.
It's great.
Backer does it pretty well as well.
Yeah, I was
he
just gonna
does
say
do some of it. Like Erikson does do some of it, right? Remember when, like in the last book, Quickbin basically like catches everybody up in case you miss all these important things that happen. He's like da da da. But like the Leosin part is just, first of all, it's so background, and there was like spurts of moments where they come into the foreground. But by this point, I'm like, you are definitely not what I'm focusing on.
I agree.
So
I think most authors actually, because like this is a tangent, but I was reading Robin Hobb's like I think it's her YA series. It's like the fourth trilogy slash tetralogy in her Elderlings books, and the first quarter of the books are all catch up, and it drives me insane. I'm like, just put it as something at the beginning of the book to catch me up, so you don't have to do this inside the narrative.
yeah, I don't like when it's too much in the narrative and uh like it feels like if I'm like binging, I'm like, I just read all this. I like that Backer puts it separate.
Yeah.
but to that point, like you as a reader, you could just skip that part.
Yeah.
You could just
Right.
like gloss over it.
That's why I like Backers. He separates it out rather than having it like if it's in the narrative, it's like in the first like 12 chapters, anytime something comes up that you're supposed to be reminded of, the characters talk about it like, oh, you remember that's what happened. And
It just comes off as so contrived sometimes.
yeah.
Usually.
It should not be inside the narrative.
Every fantasy series should have a dramatis personae and it should have a recap prior to the narrative. This should be mandatory.
That might be too much.
I wouldn't say every.
Okay. Almost every epic fantasies, every epic scope series.
I don't like every, but I would be happy saying most.
I think Erikson needs it.
I agree.
I agree.
Melissa McPhail, I think, does both dramatis personae and recaps, and it's very helpful. And like, if you just are binging the series because the recaps are separate, just skip the recap, and you don't have to worry about it.
Panda, you're very excited to see Ganos again. Wasn't it great to get Ganos again?
I mean, he wasn't like involved in the last book. Like we didn't see him at all. He was mentioned briefly. So yeah, like this is the last book in this main series. I better see him. But then I wasn't really sure what he was doing. I mean, as I read through these chapters, then I figured it out. But that does present an interesting thing where, well, once we get to like chapter 7, we can talk a lot. Here's the thing. I'm trying really hard not to just like sprint to chapter 7 because a lot of the stuff that happens before chapter 7 is like, oh my god, why is this so slow?
I partially agree with your criticisms here. I have several criticisms of the Crippled God, and like they tie into some criticisms I have of this of the series as a whole. But yeah, I totally understand your impulse here, and I to some degree agree.
Well, because so here's the thing. Dust of Dreams, I understand, is the first like half of the ending arc, right? Or ending whatever, wrap up, which I have already said that a lot of it was also pretty slow. So I expected like, hey, you only have this one book left. There are a lot of things to tie up, and I know this book is still quite long, but as a reader who has now been reading this for over 2 years, I'm like, I'm reaching the end of my patience. But that's not to say I hate what I've read. That's not what I'm saying. It's just the pacing. I get it. Like upon reread, I would probably appreciate a lot more. But the first time through, man, it's hard.
Yeah, it can be hard. Yeah.
There are quite a bit, and I think I agree. Not that all of them should be cut or anything, but I thought a lot of it was telling us information that we already knew, or that we could at least infer instead of. But at the same time, I really like getting caught up with Mappo because I love Mappo and I missed him
There
so
were
much.
some that I'm like, I actually enjoy you, and then others I'm like, I can't. I'm I'm trying to process and retain, but it's just
I primarily read these books because I love the characters, right? I'd say
yeah.
probably for me first it's characters, themes, and then I don't know, maybe story or something. But even for me, I think a lot of them were a little extraneous. Not that even one POV should have been cut, but maybe parts that were I don't know. It
I
might
think it'd
be
be
a little
trimmed down.
superfluous. Yeah.
Trimmed.
Yeah.
The Talani mass stuff was a little slow for me on the reread, at least. I can't. I'm sure there's other stuff too that I remember that I'm having trouble remembering now because I don't hold on to the stuff that I don't like as much. I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah. Get to the good stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I did really enjoy the interactions between. I liked the stuff with Piran. It caught us up. I
Mhm.
liked later in the book. I like all the stuff with Stormy
Mm.
and the Jag Hut, and then Stormy and the Adjunct. Well, that's so cool. But the Talane Mass stuff was a little draggy, and the stuff with the Trigal people, yeah. Mappo stuff's okay. I do like the Mappo stuff just because I like Mappo. But
I really like the Four Crow Cell stuff, and I think that's an unpopular opinion.
yes,
Is it?
that
Is it
stuff.
not? Like
I
justice.
like them.
I'm gonna kill children. All these wars. Justice.
Like, they are the clearest expression of why all these people want to destroy humanity in the series. I think their sections are very important to express that, because you do have a lot of people here coming to that conclusion, and some turning away from that conclusion. Like Tool is turning away from that conclusion, but the Assail, they provide the most coherent argument for this. Although probably the one that people find least sympathetic, because it's also the coldest and the most like
They're very extreme.
clinically logical.
Also,
Yeah.
they're chasing children
Right.
and killing
Yeah.
them. If you want people to like sympathize with you, don't kill children.
Well, if you're gonna exterminate humanity, you have to do that, right? So
I don't think the Fokuro Assail are looking for sympathy. Like that is not their
No.
goal. So
Yeah, and the Assail also have been so held back for the whole
Yeah.
series.
Absolutely.
So like feels like any time with them before the end is like
And
you're
each
like
time they've shown up, it's always been like, wow, did that just happen?
yeah, and they're
Yeah.
like and then it's over like so fast. So we're finally like getting a little more of their ideology like from which is cool. They also are like kind of a simultaneous way for Steve to express his sort of more cynical outlooks while also being like a foil to Steve's positive ideology. Like,
Mm.
you know, they clearly are not just they're not just like the big bad guys, but like their whole ideology are like what the book is against. And they
Like,
like
these guys are assholes, but they're not entirely wrong.
yeah. I mean, some of the things they say, I think, like a little bit of, I kind of feel like, oh, a little bit of Steve's sort of more cynical outlook towards humans is expressed by them, but they also are like what his philosophy is sort of like pushing against as well.
Right.
It's like
Okay. I
dual.
see that. Well, okay.
I love
For a book that's called The Crippled God, and for like how much more page time the Crippled God has gotten in the series than the Fokuro Assail, right? Like, I think at this point, Steve had to do more to bring the Fokuro Assail into the forefront because, you know, at the end of chapter 7, they are actually being painted as the enemy, right? And it's not the Crippled God. So I do appreciate the Fokuro Assail moments that we're getting through these first 7 books. So those aren't really the ones that I felt drag. I mean, some of it it was confusing because I was like, what's going on? Why are we focusing on these people? But by the end of book 2, I'm like, okay, totally get it. But there were just like other things where it's like if you're not presenting new information and you are just presenting more like I don't know, what's it called? Reflection from specific
rumination.
rumination, that's the word.
although some of the new information is like embedded in the rumination, but you could argue that it could be delivered elsewhere.
Yeah, more effectively, more succinctly.
Mhm.
So, anyway, I think we get the point where we all feel the same way about some of these POVs. Going back to chapter 1, the Yosins did say even Father Light kneels broken, useless, and blind. Draconis is Father Light, right?
No.
No.
Dang
Mm-mm.
it. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, Father
He-
Light is the mythical originator of the Leosin. He replaced Draconis
He
as Mother
replaced
Dark's lover.
Draconis.
Yes,
Okay,
Draconis was Mother Dark's original lover. He was the
got it.
original progenitor of the Dark, Mother Dark married him. Well, Mother Dark loved him,
Okay.
and then they had something of falling out, and then Father Dark comes in and like
Father
tears
Light.
everything apart essentially with his presence.
Okay. I just got it mixed up in my head that Draconis was
Mhm.
Father Light. Okay.
Nah, he's the jilted lover of Mother Dark.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Okay.
Draconis is like a super complicated character that like, yeah, we don't have time to get into it in the Book of the Fallen, but there's a
Reading
lot to him.
Carcanus, it's so good.
If you read Carcanus, you get more Draconis.
Oh my god, so much Draconis, and it's so good.
And actually, okay, to bring it back to the Ruminations a little bit, I've been sort of reading Ulysses side by side with this, and
Okay.
I'm noticing some similarities. So I agree that these sections could totally be trimmed down, and some of them could be probably excised entirely without losing much. But at the same time, having these two books as a contrast, and I think it makes me appreciate the merits of the rumination Steve is doing here. Because when I originally read the series, I thought it was just him being a bit too self-indulgent.
Okay.
And maybe that's still true to an extent.
I think that's true.
Are we talking about Steve or James Joyce?
Steve.
Steve.
Okay. Because I think James Joyce absolutely is self-indulgent.
Oh yeah. But like the contrast between like a book with no plot like Ulysses and then this, it
Honestly,
brings it
I see a lot of similarities as well.
Yeah.
Mm. I will never read Ulysses.
You probably had it, so don't. Maybe read a single chapter, like one. 'Cause
Maybe
they're
in
all fairly different.
parts,
Yeah,
but not.
I think that's a perfectly fine way to read it, actually. But
Mm.
this is not a Ulysses podcast. What'd you think about the part in the middle of chapter 1 where it seems like it's the crippled god talking to somebody, and the whole thing is in quotes? I think
Yes.
the whole thing's in a single quote, so it's like, that's an interesting choice. It's not exactly a POV. It seems more like a clipping from a book or a conversation written down somewhere.
Yes. So, going back to like our Dust of Dream episodes where I think I was like, when Tavor was saying to the Bone Hunters, like, hey, where we're going, we're gonna be unwitnessed, like, right? And I was like, no, somebody is gonna witness. Like, I do think, and we kind of get it a little bit in chapter 7, I think, when Banishar says something like, I will witness or whatever. So it's possible, that whoever did the witnessing is the one putting in some perspective from the crippled god here when they're writing this book.
Thumbs up.
Okay. I have another theory about Ruth and Good.
Hell yeah.
About Ruth and Good, okay.
He's not in this section, but go for it.
No, he's not in this. I can wait.
Okay.
But, yeah.
The Crippled Gods monologue here is probably actually my favorite part of these two books. I thought it was really good. I really appreciated it this time
I
around.
loved reading it. Yeah.
And okay, so Sun Gamer asked it's probably a fine time to bring up Sun Gamer's question, one of his questions. And I actually had noted this as well in the Erikson chat. He states, actually I need to read the longer section of this because I think it makes more sense if you read the longer section. No, do not look at me that way, you of smooth and subtle thought. You give your sympathy too quickly, and therein hide your belief in your own superiority. I do not deny your cleverness, but I question your compassion. Like, he's directly calling out the reader there, right?
Yeah.
Like a certain type of reader, of which, like, totally I think I'm a subset of that.
I think most people who read this book would be that kind of reader, right?
Absolutely, I think. Like, he just, yeah, and like I think that's an.
Do you think
I'm
Steve is
compassionate.
like calling out himself?
I think that's part of it too. Absolutely.
Okay.
That was a really I like it when he directly challenges us like that, and through these ruminations, the Crippled God's also challenging himself, and I think it's quite effective. I think it's more effective than like all the other ruminations in these two books. Because not in small part because it's also one of the most succinct. It like takes up like a page.
It's succinct. It's meta. It's directly challenging the reader.
So this is where he uses it effectively, and I also like how the section with Udanas when he's doing his ruminations, because Udanas just has one of the best voices for this. I think it's all downhill from here. There.
So not to go from all this big thematic stuff down to like something like really minor, but
Do it.
Do it. Yeah.
Piran. One of the things I liked about the scene with Piran is that you get a sense of time having passed
Mm-hmm.
because his beard is like gray, and like I have no clue what the time scale of these books is. Like to me, before his beard was gray, he's like still the edgy like 20-year-old that he was in Gardens of the Moon. And like
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how old he is or how many years we've spent in the world. And his beard being gray made me go, oh, more than a few. Okay. At least 10, maybe.
I don't think it's
Maybe.
10.
You don't think
No.
it's 10? So
No, I
his
don't think it's 10
beard is just
either.
gray young, I guess?
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
he's like
been
so stressed.
Yeah, he's been under a lot of pressure.
I've been graying since I was like 27.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's a thing. Okay.
hmm I think maybe 5 years from the period that Perron became captain of the Bridge Burners to now, something like that. Someone's worked out the timeline.
I'd say
I
at
think,
least
like a rough
5.
timeline. So yeah.
See,
Obviously longer since the start of Midnight Tides, though.
I think one of the biggest problems with the timeline is
That it doesn't make any sense.
well, I'm saying the thing that throws the wrench in there is little Harlow. It's like how did that much time pass between this and this, and then if that much time has passed, then what's happening on this other continent happened in that same amount of time. So it's
Oh, that's true. What is he,
not
like 7 in Toll the Hounds?
he's old enough to do lots of things that a kid that was born that many years ago should not be doing, and
Yeah.
maybe
He's not four.
he's treated. Yeah,
Okay, so maybe it's like almost 10 years.
Okay.
not really important. No,
No. Shall we move on to chapter 2?
I say yes.
Yes.
I think there was one more thing. There was a conversation between Ganois and Shadow Throne, and I really enjoyed that conversation because it was, well, one, there's the humor of it, but it was also very much thematic in the role of faith and how you view faith. And at the end, right, there was kind of a wager between the two. And what was it? It was uh Shadowthrow muttered something under his breath and then hissed, very well, tell me what you want. And so Paran told him. The god cackled. And you think that's in my power? You think Cotillion has no say in the matter? Which, by the way, this also shows like Shadow Throne and Cotillion not exactly in sync. If he does, best you go and ask him then. Unless, Paran added, it turns out that, as I suspect, you have no idea where your ally has got to. In which case, Lord of Shadows, you will do as I ask and answer to him later. I answered to no one. Another shriek, the echoes racing. Paran smiled. Why, Shadow Throne, I know precisely how you feel. Now, what is it you seek from me? I seek the source of your faith. The king waggled. That she's out there. That she seeks what you seek. That upon the plain of blood and chains you will find her and stand facing her, as if you two had planned this all along, when I damn well know you haven't. You don't even like each other. Shadow Throne, I cannot sell you faith. I think there's quite a bit to unpack in that section where the she that Shadow Throne is referring to, I believe, is Tavor.
Yes, absolutely.
And, you know, thinking about at the end of chapter 7, like what we find out there, it does give me a little hope now that I understand where Paran is, where Ganois is, and what they're going to do. What Tavor wants to do with the Bone Hunters. Like I'm still prepared for my heart to be ripped out, but I'm just like itching to get there and be like, okay, can I just see you two like finally get together? Not in that way.
For our listeners, she corrected herself because in our private chat she says, "Oh my goodness, Paran, we haven't seen you in forever." And I'm like, we've been with a Paran for quite a while.
Oh my goodness.
She's like, "What?"
Technicality. Ganois. Anyway,
Yep.
that's it.
It is an excellent conversation, and oh boy, I think it's another example of like It's succinct. It's not self-indulgent. It's,
It's
compelling conversation between
engaging.
two. Huh? Yeah, it's engaging. Absolutely. And it makes for a lot of contrast between some of the other sections.
Yeah.
Outside of chapter 7, that conversation and the conversation between Cotillion and Edgewalker are probably the two best of this first 7 chapters,
Wrong.
Ooh.
followed by Gessler and the Jackhut.
Wrong.
Me and the Jackhut, I meant. No, wrong.
Okay.
What's your choice?
Really? You don't know?
We'll have to find out.
Yeah.
Let's go to chapter 2. Chapter 2. Tulus Shorn brings despair to a fallen Imas. Olar Ethel kindly takes Tool's children under her wing. Ruthan Good rescues Bottle from the battlefield. Quick Ben provokes furious debate in the fandom about his origins.
What was that second thing you just said?
Ruthan Good rescues Bottle from the battlefield?
No, the one about Olar Ethel.
Oh yeah, she adopts Tool's children. Guys, Olar Ethel is a sweetie. She's probably going to take them to have like cookies or something.
That was the conversation I was referring to because it was fantastic.
I partially agree. I partially disagree, but I partially agree.
I loved how Olar Ethel basically dismantles everyone in that group. She's like, I'm taking your kids and you're going to live with it. And this is why, because I'm going to give you what you want, or you are weak and you're looking for your friend and I'm going to kill you otherwise.
And like, it's not that I'm going to kill you otherwise, because she gets defeated here. And yet she also says to like Gruntl's like, what are you gonna actually take care of these kids? And he's like, oh no, I'm not. I'm gonna abandon them. So
he calls out every single one of them for their
That is
weakness
true.
and not taking care of children, except for Torrent, who is literally the weakest one in the group, the guy who can do
Yep.
nothing. And he finds inspiration from Mr. Talk, the goat.
Mhm.
And yeah, this is probably my second favorite conversation in this.
Okay,
these
it's
first seven
good,
chapters.
but the ranking for me still stands.
Ah,
Under the Stormy and the Jackhut conversation for me.
that was pretty good too, though.
My problem with this section is that it reinforces a complaint, like a reoccurring complaint I have about the series. I think the uber powerful beings sometimes get defeated way too easily, right?
Okay.
Like an undead eye causes very significant damage to this unfathomably old being, right?
Yeah.
And Gruntle like almost kills her, sort of.
That's one of my favorite things about the series, is that there's no like clear true power level, because the people you think are at the height of the power level can just get taken out by anything if they're in the mortal realm.
I like it contextually. I like it when it feels earned. I like, because everyone's talking about like how powerful Olar Ethel is, and obviously she survived a very long time. So if she gets repeatedly defeated, or if for example, these unfathomably powerful beings get defeated by pretty unexceptional people, it makes me wonder why this hasn't happened before. And
She didn't get defeated though. She
that's
walked away with
what
the
I'm a
kids.
little confused about. I don't feel like she
She got injured by like this.
Yeah, so
this
Baljake,
eye that she literally had a connection to.
So
And then-
Baljake almost rips off her arm, right? And then
Right.
Gruntle's like he like has his cutlasses to her throat. He could have just killed her then.
He's a
right?
mortal sword.
Sure. But like I think my point stands. There's been a lot of mortal swords out there. I think contrast this to how Erased is actually presented in Gardens of the Moon, right? Like 13 dragons attack Erased and he defeats them all. But in the end he does get defeated by some mortals, and that to me feels more believable. I think it's too easy here. And it kind of reminds me of prior when in Toll the Hounds, the hounds get kind of like defeated pretty easily as well. In one case by Barathol.
That is, I would agree with you.
That was because
but
of Nimander, right?
Is this because of Nimander too?
no,
He's like
but
exercising his psychic energy.
I have a different read on this, where I think she was taken by surprise, and she did kill the eye. So she survived that, and with Gruntle, she used her wits to survive. And I don't think that these powerful beings always have to use their power, just like how mortals can use their wits to defeat the powerful, the more powerful. So to me, I don't quite see it as this was a defeat for her because in the end, she still walked away with the children.
This is true.
Um,
But like, yeah. We can pick
are
this
elder
up.
gods all that? Erastus like got his eye removed.
Yeah, he got his eye. Yeah, that is true. I think we can pick this up again throughout the book.
Okay,
Because
sure.
I will be bringing it up more.
What I will say is, if it were a different character, like if we were more of like, yeah, I root for Olar Ethel, that kind of thing, then my read on this scene would have been more like she was a badass. But because I don't root for her, then I'm just like, ah ha ha, you got, I guess not
I think
quite tricked, but
I think I would agree if this were maybe Kilomandros or like Draconis, but Olaratha, we have very little base to believe like she's all that sturdy.
Well, Olar
mm,
Ethel is someone that makes people like Kilmandaros worried, right?
Yeah, because like she could mess you up, like
Yeah.
like she did in this scene, but she didn't use any of her like magic power or elder godly power here.
These are all like pretty low power mortals though, right? They're not like
mhm.
Gruntle isn't.
I guess what I was trying to
Cool.
say was like if I were rooting for her in this scene, I would felt like, yeah, you go tell him, Olar Ethel. But because I'm not rooting for her, I'm like,
Mhm.
shut up, you get out of here.
Right. I think I contrast this with a lot of scenes where we do see some of these beings being like uber powerful, like when it takes like 10,000 Talanimas to kill one Jagat. And then they don't even kill the Jagat at the end. They just pin them under a stone,
Mm,
right? So
But
like
he wasn't a
those kinds
god.
of huh?
Like those are Jaghut or Fulcral Cell. I consider kind of most of these rules off the table when it comes to elder gods.
What do you mean?
mm,
Well, as we've seen, elder gods have vulnerabilities that don't exist for other uber powerful beings like Jaghut or Fulcral Cell, right? Like the twins Ulpon were taken out rather unceremoniously in Gardens of the Moon just because they had a loophole in their coin and their worshippers or male. He's always at the mercy of his worshippers for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
Um,
those I regard as like interesting and valid ways to defeat these gods, rather than just like the kind of brute force that is here.
Okay, so you mentioned the Talani Moss, right?
Mhm.
And how it took like 10,000 of them to defeat one Jaghut, right?
Well, like you remember in House of Chains when there's like the scene where they're going down the bone stair, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh my god, these are like there's like hundreds of thousands of dead mass here, and then it's like implied that this was just like a couple Jaghut, and then there's also a trapped assail, so maybe conservatively they each defeated like 30,000 of them before they were in turn
So
defeated.
right, but where I'm going with this is the Jaghut and the Forkroll Assail at one point had a war with each other.
Mhm.
The Andy and the and the Assail had a war with each other, and the I get the sense that they're kind of on mostly equal footing. The Andy, the Assail, the Jaghut, kind of on equal footing ish.
I wouldn't say the Andy are as powerful individually as the assail or the Jaghut.
Okay, but at least the Jaghut and the Assail were like kind of matched. Yes.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm uncertain about that. I think that maybe the assail are the most individually powerful,
Okay.
contested by some Jaghut.
So here's where I'm going. There you go.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I needed. So the Assail are afraid of Ikariam, and
Mhm.
Mappo, who is one of these mortals that Ular Ethel defeated here, Mappo can knock out either Ikariam or Karsa Orlong, who are both like really scary, powerful beings that
Yeah.
tons of people are afraid
Yeah.
of.
If they don't see it coming, absolutely.
if they
Including
don't
like
take it.
yeah, right, exactly. So if you're caught by surprise, or if there are other like factors that impact things, even a powerful being can be taken down by
That's
a lower
exactly
level.
what I said before. She was caught by surprise.
Right, I know exactly. And Olarethel was kind of surprised by
Yeah.
the dog attacking her,
Mhm.
and she beat it ultimately.
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
I think she
there's
thought
that.
it was going to be on her side.
Yes. Yes, that is true.
Yeah. Okay. Can we move on
Yes,
to
please.
Draconis and Ublala talking about courting?
They really get to the heart of the matter.
I never wanted until we got, and I wish we had longer.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Courting is the art of growing like mold on the one you want. I'm I mean,
He's not
sure.
wrong.
It's been described like that to me before.
Is this how Steve won his wife? Like, I don't know if he's speaking from experience. Anyway, I enjoy those moments.
I like the point when Ublala says Mina's all right if she's pretty.
Yeah. Oh, poor Ublala.
Blah, blah, blah. It's been so long. I just want to sex someone.
You know, I actually have like this. I do find Ublala a bit ick.
Because
I
he's so horny, and because he's kind of a child.
Yeah, but so I think I have to be very careful here because like it's not like I get why he is the way he is, but that doesn't um I don't think that necessarily discounts how I would feel if I encounter somebody like that in real life,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it's a very it's a balancing act. Like you kind of need to help them understand like some things are crossing the line, crossing the boundary, and like personal space and respect for other people, like how to do that. But at the same time, if that person doesn't have the capacity to do that due to various reasons, right? Like you can't completely fault that person either. So it's actually a really it's kind of a really bold move for Steve to put this kind of stuff in here.
It's Forrest Gump.
I guess, yeah.
Issues around like things like consent, sexual consent, like immediately become thorny when you're not dealing with two similarly competent, similarly positioned adults who have full knowledge of what's going on. Like every other time, it just like immediately starts getting to like really thorny territory that we don't really have good moral intuitions about. Like
He's
Ublala,
not
like
even fully human.
yeah, he's not even fully human. But like he's clearly he's mentally deficient, it seems.
Yeah.
But he also has these desires and seems to be able to consent himself to sex. But he doesn't quite understand the nuances of other people's lived experiences. And like we have a tendency to think that people
And
who
just like anybody,
aren't
he has a capacity to feel used himself, and
yeah,
he'll
and
be upset by that.
yeah, and we tend to think of people who are less mentally capable as being more innocent, but Steve keeps challenging that. Like he
Yeah.
challenges the notion of innocence itself a lot, in children, in all these factors. And at the end, I don't know what kind of conclusion I'm
Well,
supposed to draw from
and I
this.
don't think
But
I
I'm
can't.
trying to get to a conclusion. I'm just kind of like
Hmm.
pointing out like, okay, this actually makes me uncomfortable. And I don't think it really matters in this world whether Ublala is human or not because we've seen like interspecies whatever, relationships and stuff. I think what's interesting is like a contrast between Ublala and Karsa because Karsa is basically doing a very similar thing to Samardev. And Samar Dev like gave in, which, you know, how do you want to read that, right? Like if you badger a woman or badger somebody long enough, then you're gonna get what you want. Like I don't think that's the message that Steve wants people to take away.
I don't read Samar and Karsa's relationship that way. I read it as she has a rivalry with him and is sexually attracted to him and doesn't want to admit it because of their rivalry, and that's why it's this protracted campaign. I mean,
Yeah.
she has feelings for him from the beginning, pretty much. But
And
because
I
of their
agree with
rivalry,
you, but I think there's a lot of subtext there that you need to read to understand that. And an unflattering interpretation can be made, even though I
yes.
disagree with it.
Yes. For
And
sure.
like how is Karsa supposed to like maybe he's just super skilled at reading the mind of a woman. But like, when a woman is just saying like, I don't want to sleep
Like,
with
no,
you,
no,
dude.
no.
Stop asking me, over and over again. Like, okay, so like the concept of the chase is a thing that exists in dating, right?
It
And some
is.
people really buy into it, and some people really enjoy it on both sides, you know.
And
But
some
at the
people are
same
really,
time,
really, really uncomfortable by the idea, including
Yeah.
myself,
yeah.
actually.
And like, how do you separate these two pools of people? You can't really, because obviously the people who are into being chased are not going to tell you that.
The
Yeah.
other thing I think it's worth mentioning is that Ublala has been kind of like shielded from this by his reputation in Lether, because he's like got a reputation as
Yeah.
like having a big dong
But
and
see,
being
here's
good
the
at
thing
sex.
though.
And so like enough women have been interested that he hasn't had to worry about
Right.
that to this point, and now you have somebody who has no acquaintance with his reputation, who's just like, oh, this creepy guy keeps asking to have sex with me. And it's like a very different, like it's like a fish out of water kind of situation.
But that's the thing is like, and okay, parenting, right, is like one of those things that is really important in this kind of example. And it's not when I say parenting, it's not like the biological parent or like the mother father. Like, it's just like helping to nurture the person. And I agree with you. He didn't have that kind of nurturing to help him understand the boundaries. And also, he was being used. And for him, I think he associated being used with being liked. And so he was okay with being used, right? So in that case, like when think about what he has gone through and how he's been quote unquote raised, I'm like, okay, I understand that. But at the same time, like when I read how he treats Ralalta, or however you say her name, it still makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, sure.
I think that's a good thing. That's
And Draconis tries to like mitigate that on both sides. I think he's like,
Yeah,
look, he has no
he's
child,
definitely like,
he has no subtlety.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, which I appreciate. So
yeah. This entire thing can be read as metaphorical for human desires in general, right?
like, is it like the worshippers and their god? Like the god's like, no, I don't wanna.
Sure, yeah. Or like
And
like humans and the earth,
yeah.
like nature itself.
Okay, now we're getting too deep. All right, move on to something
Too
funny.
deep.
Less sex talk.
Oh, something funny? Okay, so this scene with Quick Ben has probably made more Malazan fans lose their minds than maybe any other single scene in the series. Panda, you have no idea how much debate has been sparked around this. The
What?
Yeah, it's the confusion that everyone has. So okay, what it's basically revealed in here that Quick Ben has an Andy soul in him,
Uh-huh.
and the question is, who is that Andy soul?
Okay.
It's a real mystery,
I don't think
and
Should
Panda
we
given,
cares.
find out?
uh, you know,
There
don't
are
Mm,
some
expect all these
theories.
sense to be wrapped up. Yeah.
I have a theory. I think Ash and I agree on it.
Yeah, we agree on that theory.
Even though
Absolutely.
there's still a lot of unanswered
Is your theory that
connections.
it's the Mahib from Carcanus?
I'm not going to answer that.
Okay.
okay.
Anyways, yeah. Screw Quick Ben for being so mysterious.
I just want to say I knew he wasn't dead. Okay.
Yeah.
You're
That's
right.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we now?
We're still in chapter. We can go to chapter 3. Do we have anything to say about Tula Shorn and the IMAS scene? I don't really. I
It's
don't.
a good scene, and I appreciate it.
I think it'd be like a good scene for like a short story that I don't really see much of the value in this book.
I do. Okay. I'm a little tired right now. Tula Shorn, it helps with his characterization, and his character is going to be more important as the book goes on. So there's one thing. And then the other thing is, I'm sure there is something thematic that I'm not going to even try to explain right now because I'm tired and whatnot, with the IMAS and the jacket and him turning him around and the concept of mercy and all that. I liked it.
I just say I like Tulis.
I think it's something that like in terms of theme, it's like already being done in these books, and like if we're gonna cut things, I think we all have agreed that some things probably should be cut.
A theme is something that is reoccurring in a story. So if it's already happening, of course it's a theme.
Yeah, sure, but like it's happening a lot. Like
Too many examples. Okay. I liked the scene where Masangilani finds the Talon mask, and she keeps trying to make jokes with them, and they are not getting it. So Talon mask, they don't do sarcasm, but guess what? The Jackets do. At least Race does.
well, we
Yeah.
know that some of masks do sarcasm, like Honorak and Tool, noted sarcasm enjoyers prior to this
Okay,
book
fine.
and prior to Dust of Dreams. But yeah, like full eye masks, like they don't tend to.
I liked her thinking, like, where did they go? Did they just go to like a farm and say, "Give me your food"? Where did they get the water?
Don't worry about it.
Masa Jelani really has shined in this book, in my opinion.
I
love her.
really like her parts. Yeah.
Yeah, and very well rounded.
Devore noticed too.
Yeah, she was eyeing her,
You're
wasn't
looking
she?
healthy. Yeah. Devore is listen, she's so lonely.
I love that part too.
Tavor is a whole nother thing.
Let's get into Devore in chapter 7. I'm excited to get to Devore.
Okay, at the end of chapter 2, I think the last line was, then came a tapping of a cane upon rock. So I think right before this, it was the whole quick bend part.
Mhm.
So my guess here is that Shadow Throne and Quick Ben are going to have a chat.
I think that's a good guess.
Yeah, Shadow Throne. Oh, I guess he's been following Quick Ben around a bit. You got to hear that super important conversation Quick Ben was having with Mother Dark.
Mhm.
Earlier, when Panda mentioned mortals using their wits to
Yeah,
defeat gods, I thought about Quick Ben and Shadow Throne.
yeah.
I think Shadow Throne is like one of the best examples of using your wits to defeat gods.
Mhm.
Like he was just a dude like several decades ago, some amount of decades ago, and he just kind of like through his very good scheming, he has brought himself to this level of power, and he's disrupting the balance in the world to this extent.
Right, but it didn't take long for him to be one of those gods that could be defeated in similar fashion by Quick Ben.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
true.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Although,
Shadow Throne is the example on both ends of the
Mm,
on both ends of the equation there.
yeah, the Quick Ben and Shadow Throne have both gotten the better of each other over the course of the series. I think it's pretty
Yeah.
even between them.
Mostly Quick Ben getting the better of Shadow Throne though.
As Shadow Throne says, like even if he loses, he wins, and I think that's the case for most of their interactions. But also, like the Bone Hunters is like probably the most significant example of I think of Shadow Throne like really getting it over Quick Ben. You know, he's like, okay, I'm gonna throw you into this shitstorm like right now, and you can't do anything about it.
Oh, at the end, you mean?
Yes, when he forces Quick Ben to like stand up straight for the first time in the series, probably the first time Quick Ben's entire life, and confront Ikariam. That's like
Sure.
a real turning point for Quick Ben in terms
Earlier
of how he
in
used
the
his power.
novel, Quick Ben kind of got one over.
Did he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
A little bit, I
Belial,
guess.
the whole Belial sequence.
yeah.
What's sequence?
The Belial sequence.
When were they at cross odds? Like the
Shadow Throne made some deal with him, and
Mhm.
part of the deal was supposed to like the hounds were supposed to get a hold of Quick Ben at the end, and Quick Ben like
oh,
got out at the end.
like I think it was just like Shadow Throne was being opportunistic. He's like, okay, well, Quick Ben has left all these threads here. I'm gonna quickly like snip them, and if I win out of this, then I win. But in the end, he's still indebted to me for this, you know.
Sure.
So like, I think Shadow Throne still won out of that. He just won less than he thought he might.
Well, even when Shadow Throne loses, he wins. Okay, we've
Yeah.
already established that.
It felt like Quick Ben kind of getting one over on him at the time, like in the
Quick Ben
moment.
wins the little fights and battles, but Shadow Throne will probably win the whole damn thing.
The Shadow Throne Gambit is named after him.
Sure. Chapter 3?
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3?
Falash channels Hood's power to save Shirk's ship. Kalieth shares what she knows of the rise of the assailant clans. Badal decides the snake must leave the Crystal City. We catch up with the allies of the Bone Hunters as they grapple with their feelings about the ending of Dust of Dreams.
Save Shirk ship.
Save Shirk's ship.
Save
I really like that
ship.
sequence, you know, it's like,
It's
oh, like we're sinking now. We need to really figure this out. And then like they have another like 5-minute long conversation about like
we could be syncing like right now.
and then like the end, like Falash comes up and she's like all dressed scantily or whatever, and Shirk's like, okay, like the water is coming over the sides of this boat now. Please save us.
That
It was
was
a fun
an
scene.
interesting sequence.
I liked it.
It was a cool way to demonstrate how powerful Flash really is. Because before we see her make a bargain with Mail, and you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. But now she can channel Omtos Falak.
In this case, I think the power is like almost entirely Hood's, but he's letting Falash use it.
Yeah, but her mother already knew that she was using Omtos Falak, even though they haven't seen each other for a long time.
That is true.
Yeah, they seem to have some kind of link.
So I consider that. I don't think that's the case.
Hmm?
Well, right now, Omtos Falak is, I don't know, Hood is on the throne of Omtos Falak, right?
Yeah.
I think I was reading what you said correctly. Never mind.
Yeah, she just got access to it basically, like very recently.
Oh, that's why I disagree, because how else would her mother know that she has access to Omtus Falak?
But like she says, I think, like explicitly here, that she now has like a new patron, basically.
Maybe it's a little mistake from Erikson.
Maybe.
Well, they've been.
We can ask him about
Probably
him later.
contacts Brastel, and that's how Brastel knows. Like she probably uses the Warren to contact her.
Mm-hmm.
But then why does she need Mail?
What?
She doesn't anymore.
She doesn't
You'll-
now.
Yeah.
Really, the only way
Oh.
to use magic on the ocean is through mail, in most cases.
And it seems like the only way for a non-Jagat to use Omtos Falak is with the benediction of a Jagat. In this case, the actual lord of the realm who is allowing her to use it.
So how did she? Never mind. You know what? I don't care enough.
Is this the chapter where we learned that Sin killed Keneb?
No, I don't think so. But also, Sin didn't kill Keneb.
I don't think she personally did.
She says she rode the lightning. She didn't choose it or turn it, but she kind of like witnessed it. I think that's how I read it.
I think
I read it
okay.
as she directed it, and she could have stopped it, and really chose not to because she wants to grab all to herself.
I think she could have stopped it, yes.
I think she could have stopped it, but she didn't, and so I guess in a way she did kill Keneb.
She explicitly says she didn't direct it, so she can only be said to have killed him by inaction.
Yeah.
Okay.
What'd she know?
Still messed up to do it for your only friend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she's also messed up. So
Yeah, given the information we get about her here. Okay, but
that was heartbreaking.
It's not in this section, I don't think, but we might as well talk about it now. Yeah, like I find it absolutely heartbreaking, her story.
yeah.
And I think she gets like one of the worst hands in the Book of the Fallen.
Was that a
and
intended pun? Never mind. Okay.
no,
Oh, wow.
You might want to
that's
change
that's
wording.
harsh. Because like very few people actually try to empathize with her, it feels like, and like try to reach out and help her. And like even I think the perfect example is right after she's raped, Hood, this actually kind of compassionate guy, says, okay, hello little girl, you were just raped, you are dead already, you know, you're never gonna feel anything ever again that's good, and you're just gonna be a dead thing for the rest of your life. And I don't understand why that is actually there. I don't understand. I don't like it. Because I like, call me crazy, I don't think that rape victims are unrescuable people.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's obviously the case.
Yeah, it's obviously the case, but like in Sin's case, I feel like everyone has given up on her before they even tried to help her. Besides the one section in Bone Hunters where Masan Gilani is like, we'll help her or whatever. And then the next book, it's shown just like, oh, everyone's scared of her immediately.
But how many people really know about her backstory? I don't think a ton of people do.
Nobody
Yeah.
knows.
I think that's the point, though. We don't understand the pain of other people.
And people shied away from her because they don't know what to do, and it was too uncomfortable for them.
Just like Beak.
Like
Yeah.
they either it's too uncomfortable or they just don't care. Like Kalam, he didn't care. He didn't try and help her. Like when she was at her most vulnerable moment, and he showed her a very ugly way of living, which we know that she really took to heart. And Grub is thinking, oh, she doesn't even care that her brother died. Like, obviously she's bothered by it here. I
Yeah.
think, like, there's no way this isn't affecting her, actually. But he's just thinking, oh, this magic is, there's nothing left of Sin. It's just wearing her skin now. And again, that, like, seems to be obviously not the case to me.
Yeah, I think one of the main takeaways from this series is it's not just compassion. It's literally you might not think that you have impact on other people, but you never know like what you do or don't do will how it will actually impact others. And I think this is a tricky one because you could have good intentions, yet your actions will have negative impacts because what you think somebody else needs may not actually be what they need. So it kind of is this like philosophical circle where what do you do? You know? Like I could do this, I could do that, or I could not. I'm not really going to know what the impacts are going to be. Should I like are you just like going to be paralyzed into inaction? Um, I think this is just something more personal for me, like to think about. I don't really have an answer.
Yeah, something like Sin Stories is like it hits close to home because it reminds me of certain relationships that I've had with people,
Yeah.
and where they were like Sin in a lot of ways. You know, like
Yeah.
like lashing out in defense a lot of the times, and yeah, like that it doesn't mean you give up on them, right? You don't give up on the people that you are close to, the people that are around you. Like you have to make the effort. And I don't see people making the effort for Sin here.
I think what it is for me, I think one of the ways is you ask them. You ask the person, what do you need? How can I help? Do you need somebody to listen? Do you need somebody to help you problem solve? Or do you need somebody to like when I say help problem solve, like collaborate with you to brainstorm to problem solve, or do you need somebody to just solve it for you and just have a
Mhm.
better understanding from them what they need? Sometimes they're not gonna be able to tell you, but
Like
you
Sin.
can ask.
The last time I think we've seen someone actually help out Sin, and it was arguably not helpful at all. It was, I think, in the Bone Hunters when she was
Mhm.
going into people's tents and
Right.
really acting like a really uncomfortable sexualized child, like
Yep.
Yeah.
sucking on people's breasts, and that makes me uncomfortable.
Mhm. And like this entire time, they've been okay with using her, right? Like Tavor has like used her to destroy the ice in Reaper's Gale, and she saved them, like all the Marines in
Mhm.
Egatin in the Bone Hunters, and saved them again in Dust of Dreams, actually. And all she gets in return is like people scared of her and suspicious of her and trying their best to ignore her. And then I guess kindly just kind of attacking her. So
Right.
But like, aren't some of those suspicions kind of justified by some of what we've seen her do and say and think?
well, like are the like are the suspicions about the crippled god justified in a lot of ways? For sure, right? The crippled god has caused magnitudes more suffering than she has, and yet someone like Tavor is trying to help him, partially for selfish reasons, but at the same time, like obviously there is a person there who's not just willing to declare him a monster, and we see also this with the Pandian Seer when he receives compassion at the end of Memories of Ice as well.
Okay, that's fine. But like, there's it's one thing to say, oh, somebody could try to selflessly help her, and it's another thing to, say like all she gets in return is people being suspicious of her. Well, there's a reason people are suspicious of her. She's kind of a psychopath. So like,
I wouldn't
you
call
know,
her a psychopath. I don't think
she,
that's accurate.
she's done some crazy things and
Yeah,
thought some crazy
for sure.
things for
She
sure.
definitely has something like post-traumatic stress disorder, right? She's not she constantly has these like she can't escape this memory of being raped and her mother being raped, right?
Okay,
But
yeah,
that's not what
sure.
psychopathy is. Psychopathy is like if you don't have any empathy for other people at all, right? And like, given her upbringing, that doesn't seem the case.
I mean, the whole stuff with Keneb feels very. Also, isn't that sociopathy when you don't have empathy for other people? But anyway, I digress. The just some of the stuff with Keneb and the stuff with the in the Azath with the Warrens and stuff. Like some of the stuff she did. It's
Yeah,
like,
she's done morally compromised things for sure. But
yeah,
a lot of characters in this series have.
sure. But being suspicious of somebody who does morally compromised things is like a rational, normal
I think
behavior.
what Ash is saying, yes, like, yes, there is reasons for people to, like, it's understandable why people treat her the way that they do, but that doesn't necessarily make it the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's definitely not the compassionate thing to do. And in a series
Sure.
about compassion, this feels like a failing.
The failing on whose part? The author or the characters? Or
Maybe the author. Yeah.
do you think Steve doesn't treat her with enough
Yeah,
compassion?
we'll need to pick this up at the end.
I haven't finished the
Okay.
book, so I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Oh no, did he have to go?
You're hearing
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but yeah, again, for like personal reasons, like this is something that really hits close to home, and I really reject the idea that people like Sin deserve to be written off.
I wasn't.
Okay.
No, I was not endorsing
Right.
that idea. I was just, I was just sticking up for the idea that there's that treating her with suspicion can be apologized for, essentially.
Sure.
You see what I'm
Sure.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
if for no other reason than like self-defense.
If only there was someone with a magic canceling sword that could ensure that she's not a dangerous person to her.
Oh,
But
I see.
in Savor's defense, she's really busy.
Yeah. Well, she also said that in chapter 7, they would be safer with you.
Yeah,
With
yeah, like
Stormy.
okay, that is an example of Tavor trying to look out for Sin in this cold, impersonal way that Tavor tries to look after everyone in.
Yeah. What else happens in this chapter?
Not Sin stuff.
Yes.
Oh,
Nothing.
God.
Well, we don't need to do that later now. We get the rise of the Assail from the perspective of Kalyath here. I don't think there's really much to say about it, but the fact that cultural instability is an excellent catalyst for the rise of extreme ideologies. Who knew?
I like that section, but I really don't have much to say.
Yeah. And then there's all of the allies of the Bone Hunters. So the Kundral Burn Tears, we catch up with them. We catch up with the Parish. We catch up with Queen Abrastal. Catch up with Spax. Good old
Mhm.
Spax.
But we're calling him Spanx.
I love Spax.
Spax he's pretty cool. I think he's definitely the best bar guest. You know?
Rots?
I reserve judgment because I've been burned before.
I said I like Hitan and Trots a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Spax is better. Spax is like fully conscious of how awful the bar guests are, I think. We're in a way that Trots and Hitan seem mostly disinterested in until, well, in Hitan's case, it actually kills her.
Mm.
I wouldn't say disinterested.
Briss is in love.
Yeah?
I love their sections.
He says, I have never been in love before, not like this. I have never before felt so helpless, as if without my even noticing, I gave you all my power. Wow. How
Mm.
romantic.
I love it. I think that they're another great example of how Steve writes really well people that are already in love. Much better than he writes people falling in love. Not that I don't like some of that too. I think he gets a bad rap for it, but definitely the established romantic relationships he's stronger on for sure.
I loved seeing Anorect and Briz, fall for each other though.
No, yeah, I agree.
It was more like Anorect like totally in love with Briz being absolutely impossible to notice, and then suddenly noticing and then reciprocating.
And then they immediately
Okay.
get together. And it's good.
Yeah.
I like it. I feel like Steve writes established relationships that are similar to my established relationship, which makes me like them because they feel real.
He also has something to say about Tehol and Janeth here, right? It
That was beautiful.
says, I think it's how do you say her name? Erin Icht?
Aranict.
Aronix. Yes, I have heard about them, meaning about Teho and Janeth. And it seems to me that no matter which way each faces, he or she faces the other. He is her king and she is his queen, and everything else just follows on from there. It is the rarest of loves, I should think. I was like, oh, they're such equals, Teho and
Yeah.
Janeth.
I'll just say for relationships that developed, I really liked Whiskey Jack and Corlath.
Corlat?
Yeah.
Corlath.
Okay, so I like a lot of those relationships better than it seems like a lot of the fandom does. I know he gets short shrift for writing romance, and I don't think it's justified, honestly. But I do still think, even though I like that stuff,
I think a lot of people misread Perron, Ganos, and Tattersall's
I
relationship.
agree. I actually am fine with it.
Oh, okay. I mean, also, that was so early on. I think part
Hmm.
of it is he just developed better as a writer as the series went on.
Sure.
I can agree with that. I think the reason why he doesn't write very compelling stories of people falling in love is I honestly think he probably gives people too much credit, right? Like half of romance stories is the two people misunderstanding each other in creative ways. And
Creative is one way to put it.
Thank you, Joe.
yeah,
It took 9 years from Whitney and I misunderstanding each other. We both showed interest and misinterpreted the other's show of interest as the opposite.
Uh-huh.
Took us 9 years to get together. So yes, that part is absent from these stories. Like,
yeah. And that's the heart of romance stories, right? Like, and the odd thing is, like, he totally gets people misunderstanding each other all the time in these books, in every situation but non-romantic one, or is it romantic ones?
Maybe that's how he is subverting the tropes, okay?
maybe everybody in Malazan are just good closers. Okay. I guess I told my coworker the whole story of Whitney and I meeting in 2009 and everything we said to each other, and he just was face palming the whole time that Whitney thought I was rejecting her when I was like coming on to her, and at the end he was just like, "You both are terrible closers." And, and so in Malazan, everybody's just a good closer. You know, they see the opening and they just
The
close it
successful
right
ones
away.
are, yes.
Well, okay, to be fair, most of them are about to die.
Well, there's also that. When you have, life or death on the line, yeah, it helps you move it along. There was it's still in the Briss and Aranic, whatever, section. Tomorrow's parley could prove most frustrating. I just want to point out that she says this in chapter 3. Okay? Chapter 3, and we don't get the actual parley until chapter 7.
To be more accurate, we never actually get the actual parlay. The parlay happens between the scene where we see like the meet and greet right before the parlay and chapter 7. And then chapter 7 is after the parlay. And we get after action reports describing what happened in the parlay from Anoric's point of view. So
Yes.
there is no present tense version of the parlay present in this book at all.
What a tease.
Yeah.
What a tease
And
indeed.
they cut it off too, which we'll get to in chapter 7. But they cut the parlay off before some of it is, and they like chop around it.
Yeah.
Speaking of chapter 7, shall we get to chapter 4?
I think we should.
One more thing before we get there is poor Gaul. Like this poor man.
Yes.
Oh man, God, that guy kills me. His wife too.
His
feel bad
wife
for Gowron.
is I admire her a lot.
She's
Yeah.
great.
At least they had one last dinner together as a family, right?
I know,
Before.
which I mean foreshadowing. Now I read and I'm like, oh my god, okay.
Yeah, seize the day while you can, I guess. You never know when all your children are going to die.
Okay.
Oof.
Jesus
Chapter
Christ.
4.
You know, I think
I-
about that all the time as a parent.
I knew a guy growing up who he lost his entire family in a fire,
Oh.
and he was the only one that survived. Like even his wife and kids, and I don't know how the
Okay.
guy survived.
To dive into Gaul a little more, like the burden of a leader, like that is, I cannot imagine. And the fact that it was his sons and he survived, so the survivor's guilt, like, is immense. And I don't fault him for how he's responding and reacting. At the same time, he's super lucky to have the wife that he does, because she lost the same people, and now it is up to her to step in. But that being said, I do think that that is what any relationship, like healthy relationship, is, where when your partner or, whatever, friend can't stand up on their own, you step in to help, right? And that's what she did. So, all pregnant and everything. All right, chapter 4.
Chapter 4. The Bone Hunters begin to pull whatever pieces of themselves remain back together.
Blistig's the worst.
I get why he is the way he is.
No, I understand it completely, and I'm glad that we have a perspective of somebody who just hates this thing, and understandably hates this thing so much. But seriously, he's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
is just insane to me that he is still in the position of Fist.
Yeah, like
So crazy.
who else does Tavor have? Right?
I think it is
Yeah.
actually important, though. So groupthink is one of those things that can be very dangerous. And in a way, he is that one who is playing the devil's advocate to all of this, which is an important role, especially when so many lives are at stake. And I think it does help keep everybody grounded, even though they know, okay, this is what we got to do. Like,
Yeah.
I think in a way I do appreciate his voice, but I also want to punch his face.
But the thing is that, like, it's not just it's not just like an ideological, like, abstract thing. Like he's like interfering with the functioning of the army on a regular basis.
I mean,
His
that's
command,
kind of like
he's
a side
rapid
effect. Yeah.
commander. So I'm sure he's damaging morale. Uh, I mean, there's more on this later in the book too, so I don't want to. We can get into it even more later, but man,
I don't see Blistic surviving. That's what I think. And if he does, then it's more going to be like because of his cowardice.
I just think that if they were still a professional army that was attached to the Empire and not this mercenary outfit, that he would have been fired already.
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
like stripped of rank and like shot down into the ranks or something.
Yes,
I think if Tavor had anybody competent that she could replace him with, she would. And she just doesn't have that.
I think the other thing, this army has gone through so much so quickly. Like, this is not normal anymore, like, by any standard. And we see that with the scene with Fiddler and his sergeants. And I think that was an example where Fiddler actually showed more leadership than Tavor.
What scene are you referring to? Do you mean the scene where he has all the Marines and heavies in chapter 7?
Yes.
Or is this? Yeah, it's not just the sergeants. He's addressing
Or,
all.
I mean, all of the people that he commands.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it until this part, Tavor is essentially brain damaged. That's to provide her a bit of excuse for why she hasn't been leading more actively, right? Until Dead Smell heals her, like she's essentially holding herself together by like the tiniest of threads.
Okay, but hasn't Blistig been like a burden to the army since like Egaton?
To some extent.
Yes, but it's gotten much worse. I think during that time it was manageable, in my opinion.
But like out of the Bone Hunters, like he's one of the only people who's actually commanded people before. Like she raised Kindly up to be a fist. She raised what's her face, her house guard up to be a fist, who was like totally not qualified and died pretty quickly. Now she has Kindly as a fist, and Ferret and Sword who are captains, and she brought up like whoever was a competent sergeant up to captain now.
Kindly had points.
Kindly what?
I saw Kindly had some good points.
He did. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love Canley. He's one of my favorite characters.
I kind of like him and hate him.
I guess one thing I'll just qualify is when I was saying that Ballistic was kind of playing devil's advocate, I jumped forward to the chapter 7 stuff, not necessarily chapter 4.
Every chapter here, we're just jumping forward to chapter 7. And just
I
half the
know,
we're
story.
just do
because
that.
that's where the good stuff is. Anyway.
Yeah, but a lot of that stuff couldn't happen without all this other stuff.
I know, which is why I'm like, okay, let's talk about these other chapters.
Boo on the setup. I really like the scenes where they're pulling like the Marines out of like, okay, you lost everybody but 2 of you. You 2 are now with my squad. We're now like the 11th or whatever.
Oh yeah, the
I'm taking
rejiggering.
Keep-
5 guys from the 18th. I'm taking 7 guys from the 14th,
Yeah.
and we're gonna make 1 squad.
And we're gonna make like the whatever army we can out of the remaining Marines and heavies. And then it's like I think it's like a couple hundred of them survived, which is absolutely devastating for the army because those were the best soldiers by far. The regulars are not nearly the same caliber.
Fiddler's old squad is now in. Korab is now in charge.
Yes.
Oh, he's the no. It's Tar that's in charge. Korab is the
Sergeant.
no. Korab is the
Corporal.
corporal. Yeah, he's the corporal. He was promoted to Tara's position, and Smiles is upset that she is not the corporal.
Actually, sorry, really quick. I know we don't want to talk about Ballistic anymore, but I just have to say in chapter 4, when he was talking about how Tavor stole his future, like I get it. I really
Mhm.
understand his perspective, and I don't really fault him for it because I think that is a natural reaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially
You'll get more
given
information
how-
about that later.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just biting my tongue right off hearing you say this.
But I agree.
Okay.
Tavor's healing scene kind of broke me.
Yeah.
I like that scene.
It was a fantastic scene, and like
Mhm.
just seeing somebody actually see the pain that Tavor's in, and then how much it affects dead smell
Yeah.
really had quite an impact on how you could feel the way she's feeling, I suppose. And she changed a lot after that scene, just opening up to one person for even a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, the way that he described it was that she had to let down her guard, right?
She couldn't be healed any other way.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I'm sure we could have a whole like essay episode
We will.
basically about it.
We will. That will be what the
Okay.
4th episode of this series is.
Oh
probably.
god. Okay. I think I need to go see a therapist just from this.
The
Do you know how
second-hand
long
trauma.
do you know how long book 7 is in this book?
It's pretty long.
It's almost 40%, I think.
It's not 40%. Let's see. 1 second.
It's at least 35.
Or anyway, I think the part about the Kundrel, some of the Kundrels going up to Hedge to be like, "Yo, we want to be part of your squad."
Mm.
That really like breaks my heart.
He tries to send them back. He tries to shame them into going back to their people.
Just like Kindly did.
The Kundrel burn tears. I mean, they have a special place in my heart.
I mean, it's almost better to be Wiccan.
It's gonna hit so much different on the reread of Dead House Gates when I get there with Whitney, because the burn tears are like such a footnote in that book.
I
when-
disagree. If you remember that episode, like that was my favorite part of the book.
Yeah.
I know, but you'd already read the whole series, sir.
It was my favorite the first time. Like that scene is incredible. The Wiccans! The Wiccans! The Wiccans! No, I agree. It's even better the second time.
It's gotta be. I mean, it'll be like the 5th time for me, but it'll be the first time.
They're actually an excellent parallel, I think, to Devore herself. Like, they're both trying so hard to live up to Coltane's legacy. Like, so hard. And in a lot of ways, they're failing. In some ways, they're succeeding, though. And of course, the context that they're failing, succeeding in is wildly different. Like, as they point out, the Wiccans would not have survived that charge either.
Trying to live up to Coltane's legacy.
Yeah, right? And she's explicitly compared to Coltane in, like, all sorts of ways as a Malazan commander.
Yeah, especially in book 4. Like that was all over that book.
Well, sure, But is she trying to, or are people just making that comparison?
I don't think there's much of a difference.
I think she's very aware.
I feel like she's more. I feel like for her, it's more like she's comparing against all the great Malazan commanders.
Oh yeah, every single one, which Coltane is one of.
Yeah, no, he is one of. But for her, she's like been studying all these great commanders for her entire life. She's like, so it's not just Coltane for her. It's like,
No, but he is the most recent.
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
He's the one that they are measuring her up against the most.
That is true.
I took your guys' advice, and when I got to Nepfaro's section, I read it out loud to myself.
Mr. Anderson's
Yes,
confused.
it did, but it was still a bit challenging. Not gonna lie.
Arr, no rough dog, me ruffles. Roll rich dog, me nip wolf.
Wolf.
I really like this part. I can't remember who told him, who was speaking to Nep, but he said,
Ruffle.
"Oh, Ruffle, you're right. Those short tails were too tall. Swinging down as low as they had to was hard. Their armor wouldn't give enough at the waist. And did you see us? We learned fast. We waged war on their shins, stabbed up into their crotches, hamstrung them, skewered their damn feet. We were an army of roach dogs, Nep." And I was like, you know, you are. And like, it's such a, I don't know, it just like, I really like that part where it was a different way to see it, like, because we keep getting the poor Marines, the heavies, like they were almost decimated. But here is this like positive perspective, like, yes, we were, but we still made it and we fought like hell.
This is the kind of thing that, so my earlier complaint about these unimaginably powerful beings being taken down, this is the opposite of that. I totally 100% buy why these Malazans are so dangerous to these incredibly powerful entities like the Naruk. And yeah, I love discussions about Malazan military doctrine, what makes them special. Like, it reminds me of like all the way back in Dead House Gates when they're discussing their pulling teeth tactic, when they had like these wet shields that they would use to tear people's weapons away from them. This is the good stuff.
I think you're right that this is definitely a more effective illustration of that concept. And I really like that they just highlight who their really good leaders are, like Fid, Tar, Korab, and somebody was like, even Hellion.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of what makes it so effective for me is like still like almost all of them are dead after this. They did far, 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 far better than they should have. They didn't any right to do, and they still almost all died.
Yeah.
See, I'm just picturing an army of chihuahuas. Like,
Is that what you associate with roach dogs?
Yeah, because Bent and Roach.
Yeah.
Roach is a roach dog, and he's a chihuahua,
Yeah.
right? Like
Chihuahua.
that's the chihuahuas in Malazan are bred
Okay.
for hunting roaches, and so I'm picturing like an army of chihuahuas like fighting on the battlefield.
Not modern chihuahuas though.
No.
Modern chihuahuas are not good at this. I would say like something like a dachshund would be
Oh my
somewhat
gosh.
closer for
That's
me.
even cuter.
Chihuahuas are mean, and
Dachshunds were bred to root out badgers in their burrows.
Yeah, they're
Dachshunds
hunting
are
dogs.
oh god, every dachshund I've ever met is like lazy and just like they're not
That's
doing what they
because
were
we
good
made
for.
them that way.
yeah. They're not awakened to their true purpose, but if you show them a badger den, I bet they would wake up. Like Roach. Shall we go on to chapter 5? Or do you have more,
Sure.
Panda? Okay.
Now let's
Chapter 5. Sandalath is forced to accept her new role as Queen of Karkanis. Twilight and Legendarium prepare to defend the shore from the impending Leosin invasion. The Assail coordinate the defense of their project to cleanse the world of humanity. Erastus and Setulath wait for the right moment to free Korabus. The snake leaves its place of safety.
You feel the pre-battle tension on the shore?
Yeah. I like how it was Brevity, Captain Brevity was like he was talking who was he talking to? She was talking to.
She was talking to Yed and Derek.
Yed and Derek. Okay. They were talking, and Yed and Derek's like, "A fine speech, Captain." And then Brevity says, "Tried making it short as I could, sir." And I thought that was funny because it's Captain Brevity. Okay, anyway. That took too long for me to explain, so now it's not funny. Okay.
Yeah, you didn't have enough brevity to it.
No, now it's
I
funny
know.
because it's ironic.
Oh, forgive me. They were talking about the system having double standards and doesn't allow for mobility. Anyway, sorry.
I really like this section with Yed and Derek and Brevity because they're trying to figure out how to motivate their people to fight the Leosin. It's like, okay,
Right.
yes, we can tell them that they're defending their home, but they haven't been here long enough. We can tell them that they're going to save the world from these maniacs who are going to just do a genocidal purge. But how many people really do that? What we need to do is we need to make them fight for their own greed. So we're going to bury this treasure here and we're going to arrange it so that they're
Right,
actually
right,
incentivized
right.
to fight. And then at the end, Brevity admits, well, she's actually going to fight because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
She's not actually giving the other people enough credit, maybe. But like also it is totally correct that a lot of them would break and flee, and motivating them by greed is an excellent idea.
I thought
Yeah.
it was interesting that she like also was like, well, from my perspective, all that matters is my greed at the beginning of the conversation as like a way to explain why you have to motivate people through greed. And then at the end, she's like, yeah, I'll do it because it's right. And,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
you think she's cynical through the whole conversation. And then at the end, it's like she's not as cynical, she's letting on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she says, because Yed and Derek was saying, what do you think makes criminals in the first place? Or whatever. One of them says, what do you think makes criminals in the first place? Stupidity and greed. Besides those, I'll tell you. It's looking around real carefully. It's seeing what's really there and who wins every time. And it's deciding that despair tastes like shit. It's deciding to do whatever it takes to sneak through to win what you can for yourself. It's also condemning your fellow humans to whatever misery finds them, even if that misery is by your own hand. To hurt another human being is to announce your hatred of humanity. But mostly your thinking is about hating back what already hates you. A thief steals, telling herself she's evening out crooked scales. That's how we sleep at night, you see. And that's what I meant about the system having double standards, where it's like, you can play by the rules, but the system is gonna, if the system's not in your favor, then you're not gonna win. And it's actually more motivation for you to not play by the rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit of social theory introduced here.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty uncontroversial. Okay, it's controversial among certain circles, but I think broadly speaking, most people would kind of agree with these claims.
I was actually listening to AP and Esselmont talking about um, characters being likable, and they were
Oh, that's a good
talking
talk.
yeah, they were talking about like Robin Hood, how Robin Hood's a thief, but he's made out to be the protagonist, and the sheriff is made out to be the villain, even though the villain is just upholding what is the law,
Yeah,
right?
and like if you're gonna blame someone, it should be the king, right? Because that's where this sheriff is getting his authority from. So why is the king the sympathetic character?
Depending on which version of Robin Hood you're watching though, or reading or whatever, like they do a lot to like make sure to cover that like, oh, the sheriff and Prince John, if he's in the story, are like usurping the king's authority to do this. And they're like
Yes.
overtaxing and they're siphoning funds that should be, either not
It's
being
the
taxed
evil
in the first
chancellor
place.
thing that's like so prevalent in Chinese and Japanese history. It's like, oh, it's not the emperor that's evil; it's this evil chancellor that we can blame everything on instead.
That's the Disney song.
The movie that made the 1,000 furries, probably more.
Oh
Oh
my
God, that
goodness.
makes me hate the movie. That movie's so good.
Yeah.
I like as much as I take on board some of Mel Brooks's jabs at it, I like Prince of Thieves.
Mm.
I like Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman is the best part of Prince of Thieves.
Yeah,
Hold
Uh,
Tight's good.
but
I should do
Unlike
it.
other Robin Hoods, I can do a British accent.
That's what I was referencing.
Yeah.
Next chapter?
Yeah, I guess there's not really much to talk about this. Yeah.
1,000
yeah.
pace long beach. I wonder if they could beat the Leosans. I'm looking forward to it. Round 1 coming up
Yeah,
soon.
they're gonna do like a beach of Normandy invasion, but in this
And the
case,
Leosans have dragons.
yes, and
Well,
hounds.
yeah. What this is, it was in this chapter that I fully understood that Ganowith was laying siege to the Forcrow Sail. And then reading chapter 7, I was like, oh, okay, this is how they're gonna meet. And then Kilimandros is like bleeding the Ototaro dragon. Is she like weakening the dragon so it'll be easier for her to defeat later?
She's breaking through the wards that Animander and several other people placed around Korobos to prevent Korobos from ever being freed.
So like the blood of the Ototaro dragon is actually weakening the wards. Is that what it is? I don't know because
That would make sense.
Kilimandros still sat hunched, almost folded over in the dripping blood rain of the Ototaro dragon.
It's also possible that the Ototaro dragon has just been bleeding this entire time.
Oh, okay.
You know, crucifixion tends to do that, but I think using its blood to weaken the wards makes total sense as well.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. If it's the Ototaro dragon, how do the wards work? Would the wards just not work? Oh, because they are elder, like they're
Yeah,
just like Omtos Flak can heal Tabor.
yeah, basically.
Autoteller doesn't work on non-elder. Oh, it doesn't work on
Or
elder wards.
it's like less
Okay.
effective. At
I'm
least.
pretty sure it just doesn't work.
It's been that's been a little wobbly. I think that if you take everything together, it's less effective.
Okay.
Like they say that it doesn't work against it, but then there's like instances where Ototaro is used to like partially thwart elder magic. So less effective is probably the
Okay.
true.
Yeah, like
Okay.
isn't Karsa resistant to elder magic as well? And like the reason he's resistant to magic in the first place is in part because he has Ototaro in his blood.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, stuff like that.
okay.
Oh, such a last section about how he argued for existence against the fundamental forces of reality is really cool. I wish it was on a character that I found more interesting than Sensual Lath.
I like such a lot.
Like, he's fine. He's there. But like if it was a character like Draconis or something, I would find it so much more compelling.
I
Okay.
have a question.
Mhm.
So Opon is the children of Sechel Lath.
Mhm.
Erastus asks him, how does Kilimandros feel about killing her own children? Because they were talking about killing Opon.
No, the
Um,
Or Kroll Cell?
are the Forkrul her children?
I actually thought that they were Setralaths.
It might be ambiguous. Who knows with elder gods? But Kilmandaros is we do know that she's the mother of some things in this world. I think she's the mother of the Thelaki.
Thelikai.
Thelica.
Okay.
And they were like the progenitors of the Toblikai.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like obviously the Toblikai have like
Okay, I think
their
I get
blood is
it.
around as well.
I think it makes more sense because Sechel Lath was saying to Erastus, the Forcrow Assail, they cannot be permitted to actually succeed in what they seek to do. You must know that. The Assail do not kneel before gods, not even elder ones. And then they were talking da 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 da. We will need Kroll before this ends. And da 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 da. And then Erastus says, how does Kilimandros feel about killing her own children?
Mm.
Don't you
According to the
understand
wiki,
anything? Erastus, she doesn't feel anything.
Wiki says that she was worshipped as an elder goddess by the Fulcral Sail.
Got it. Okay. I wasn't sure if there was incestual relationship happening.
Wouldn't
Okay,
surprise
got it.
me.
Yeah, Kilmandaros's biggest aspect is by far is just destruction, and that is what the Assail are trying to do. So it makes sense that they would worship her.
Okay. That's such irony, isn't it? That the thing that they are worshiping is gonna
Yep.
destroy them. Okay.
Shall we go to chapter 6?
Mm.
Also known as chapter 7 -1.
It is a chapter that I had to get through to get to the good stuff.
This is, Chapter 6. Tool resolves to lead his IMAS into the storm one last time. Seatalk embraces hatred for humanity. The surviving members of the Trade Guild expedition awaken a sleeping jade giant, which is killed by Draconis. Gruntle runs from himself. Stormy is sent to find the Bone Hunters and encounters the undead Jagat.
Okay, even though I just said what I said, there were some cool stuff that happened in this chapter, I admit. It's just that it wasn't what I wanted at the time I was reading. Okay, that's all.
I really liked the Jagat in this chapter. I think they were hilarious. I was laughing so hard. I was like cracking up like every other line. I thought it was even funnier than in Dust of Dreams.
I am
I found them
glad
less
that
obnoxious.
you. I'm glad you got joy out of it. Oh my god.
Not the soundboard.
Yeah, that's correct. They kill it in every scene they're in, especially this one. I like it Mappo's thing. I actually enjoyed Tool stuff. I even like Seatalk's thing. But I agree, not much happened. So
Yes, yeah. I liked pretty much all the perspectives here as well. I didn't quite like the Trigal Trade Guild stuff. I think it felt kind of, I don't know. It feels out of nowhere in this book to me. Not out of nowhere. It's just it feels extraneous.
that's fair.
Yeah, aside from
Mappo?
Mappo and Gruntle later, not yet. The Trigal stuff is like
Yeah, and like it's funny because like this was like the comic relief section in Toll the Hounds, basically.
Now it's just sad. Everyone's dying, and they just like threw some kids away.
but one of my favorite moments that like stuck with me after reading this book the first time I read it is during the Trigal parts, but could have easily not included them and just had Draconis had the same interaction with anyone else, where the Jade creatures coming up and Draconis is like, "What are you doing? Are you crazy? From the world they're from, every god is a shield anvil."
anvil.
Yeah, I like that. Like,
That was really cool.
yeah, I really liked that. But
Mhm.
like, I don't think the Dragal were necessary to that. Like, it could have been anybody that with Draconis. Like, it didn't have to be them.
A crippled god is a shield anvil.
That's another very much discussed line in the Phantom.
I'm fine moving on to the next chapter though.
I really like Sea Talk section here. It's another perspective of the destroy all humans. That it obviously it's going to be more emotionally resonant for a lot of people. Anyone who
Yeah.
likes animals, I think, basically. And like it's a section where it's like you can't really effectively argue against her grievances here because obviously humans don't treat animals well.
You empty the land, you break the earth and use it until it dies, and then your children starve. Do not blame me. Do not blame any of us for that.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that with the kill all humans thing or the destroy all humans thing, all I pictured was like Bender's face on a Forkroll asshail, and it's like, you know, Bender from Futurama. He's like,
Yeah.
"No, mind me. I definitely wasn't thinking about killing all humans." No, immediately went
But I
to
think
Futurama with it.
at this point in the series, I'm just like, I'm tired. The fatigue is real.
Mhm.
And, you're like, you know what? I guess if all the humans die, fine.
The series is over then.
The series is over. Not gonna lie. Part of me, I was like, okay, I get it.
And yeah, I think scenes like this are partially why it's so important to have in the previous books such horrible scenes like the hobbling of Hitan, because it provides justification for a viewpoint here. If
Yeah.
you don't have scenes that are that horrible, it's very easy to think, oh, well, like Satak is just overreacting, basically.
You're just saying that because you're a bad guy, and bad guys don't like humans.
Exactly. Yeah, I really like the AMAS part here as well. Although, yeah, there's not a whole lot to say. Like, okay, the subplot of the justification for the AMAS becoming Talon, partially being because they over hunted their areas, and also the humans were starting to kill them all. I think adds some very interesting nuance to their story, as if they needed more interesting nuance because, like.
They're all irredeemable monsters. And they only hate the Jaghut for the Jaghut's purity.
And
Mm.
if you want
Okay.
even less interesting nuance on the MS versus Jaghut thing, read Assail.
Okay.
Because god. Read Assail.
You said it's even less interesting.
Yeah, totally less interesting. No more nuance added. It's not like the interesting conclusion to the conflict that we all have wanted forever.
That is sarcasm.
Yes.
It's very much sarcasm.
Oh, okay, so you actually do like Assail. Okay.
Yes,
I was like,
I quite like Assail. Assail it's not what a lot of people expect. It's not what I expected, but it is a fantastic conclusion to the ongoing dialogue, let's say.
I'd say
Okay.
not
It
enough
is-
boats.
God. If there's one thing Ice does, and I do love him for it, it's he has enough boats.
I see.
Anyone who has
Okay.
read nautical fantasy, look up Ian Cameron Esselma.
Novels of the
Okay.
Malazan Empire, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Torrent and Olar Ethel with the children. Olar Ethel is like, don't even whisper a prayer while we're in the wasteland. And before this scene, we got to see what happened when Precious Symbol was pressured to use magic. And dude, what happened to what's her name?
Sweetest Sufferance.
Yes, that was something out of horror movie. Like
Mhm.
the description of what happened to her was disgusting, and unexpected. And then the jade statue coming out, and then also being killed by Silchus Ruin?
Draconis.
Draconis. That was also unexpected, so cool. Those were like the cool parts in this chapter. But then Torrent has this thought in his brain. Every word from a child is itself a prayer. He's talking about Absi, a blessing. Dare we answer? Beware, little Absi, Olar Ethel. There are hurts that slip through. You killed his dog. Olar Ethel did not watch John Wick. She doesn't know what's gonna happen.
Blah 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 blah.
Oh man, Absi as like a proto John, like as a Neanderthal John Wick.
You could write that into a Valkyrie and Corporal Roach book.
Yeah.
The last note I have is the Jaga warriors were saying that we have sent our commander on a quest and now await his return. You order your commander around? Yes, isn't that wonderful? Isn't their commander Hood?
Yep.
Yes.
So Hood is on a quest.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm kind of skeptical that like Hood is doing anything that Hood wouldn't do anyways, but
Uh-huh.
I guess it's good for their morale, so
Okay. Yeah, sometimes you gotta let people think that they
yeah.
actually have power.
Mhm.
All right, I'm ready.
Excellent. Chapter 7. Tavor receives several unexpected and much needed reprieves from her hopeless situation. The elements of the coalition receive their assignments.
I think the epigraph of this chapter, the most fitting ever. Awaiting restitution.
Mm-hmm.
It's on so many levels. The bone hunters need it. Maybe it's also about the crippled god.
And prior to Tavor getting this news from people, like her situation was absolutely hopeless, right?
Mhm.
Like there's no way her plan could have succeeded if her plan has a chance of succeeding before this. And like you can really see how it's like the sheer relief that she feels. Like for example, when Masan Gilani comes in, it's like, oh hey, I brought these people from your realm. She's like, oh my god, it's not too late.
Right.
I really like the emotional vulnerability you get from her here, and the care that she takes. For example, on to reassure Hanavat about the Kundra Burn Tears. She's like, yes, I saw what you did. This was amazing. Briss, thank you for your Lithari people doing whatever you did. Parish people, yeah, you weren't there. That's totally fine. I still need you.
She was warm and charismatic this chapter, which is something I would never expect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe it's because she got some therapy, when she was
I
getting
think that's
healed.
exactly it.
Well, she was crying. When Masan Galani found her, her face was oddly streaked in the lamplight. She was totally having a cry session before Masan Gilani broke in on her.
Oh wow, I somehow missed that both times.
It's okay. There's a lot of details. The way that this chapter starts, is it as I see? Brisk Benedict asks, the fate of the world in the hands of 3 women. When I read that, this came into my head. Girls, we run this mother. My persuasion can build a nation. Endless power with our love we can devour. You'll do anything for me. Who run the world? Girls. From our great lady, Beyonce. And I had to go listen to that song. And then later, Aaronik was like, yeah, and you.
Yeah, there's this one guy who I guess he's the commander of the Lethari, but you know, it's really Erinic at this point, right?
I think I understand a little more about what's actually. I think we talked about this in like previous book, long time ago. Um, when when the queen of the Balkanados was telling Tavor about the people of Colon, how do you say it?
Lance.
Calance, about Calance, and she was like, "Well, it's story time." Anyway, she says the strangers from the sea had no such qualms, and when they cast down the rulers of Calance, they did what they deemed necessary. A call, said the adjunct, and that word seemed to take the life from Tavor's eyes, which brings back memories of Dead House Gates. And I think that is the sore spot between Ganowis and Tavor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was like a little dagger.
So their sore spot kind of precedes that, but also that's part of it, I think.
Mm,
Because I think she kind of viewed him as like a libertine who was like shirking his family duty to go off and play soldier instead of taking care of the estate and like continuing the trade of their father. And like she viewed him as like kind of leaving her to be the responsible one
mhm.
and doing whatever he wanted. This is covered in Guards of the Moon.
Well, she also, just to interject real quick, she explicitly says that her first step on this journey was when
Yes.
House Perron lost its only son, and then what's her face was like, "Oh, I'm sorry he died," and she's like, "No, he's still alive."
Yeah.
But go on.
Yeah. So when she's saying they lost him, could be argued
Yeah.
is before the Dujak's army is outlawed.
But
Mhm.
she knows right now, like at this point, she knows that Ganowis is the master of the deck of dragons.
Yes.
So, I mean, like, does she not see that as fate for him? Or she still, regardless, just resents him for it?
I think she resents him on a personal level for it. You know, like because of his actions, she had to do all of these horrible things that she really hates herself for, or she maybe she doesn't hate herself. She feels a massive internal pain about it.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if she actually is resentful of him or if she's more worried that he'll resent her for what she did with that situation and Fellison, you know. I mean, I know she
Oh.
doesn't know the whole extent of that herself, but she knows enough to know that he might have some qualms
Hmm.
uh about that with her. So there might be like some anxiety about like, oh,
Needless to
he'll
say, there's a lot of complicated feelings involved.
yeah.
Some contradictory.
Mm, yeah. I think there's well, in this book, as we go, we get more and more insight into Tavor as expected because we don't get her specific point of view. And with Banashar, I believe, um, he was saying the bone hunters march alone, leaking blood with every step. Fists, captains, and cooks all ask the same thing. What does she know? How does she know it? Who speaks to this hard woman with the flat eyes, this Ototoro sword stolen from the Empress's scabbard? Was it Quickbin, our mysterious high mage who no longer walks with us? Was it Fist Caneb? Da 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 da, all these things. Has she simply gone mad? But no, none of us think so, do we? She knows something, but what and how? And I'm just like, yeah, asking the questions from the readers. Like it's it's more humanizing, I guess, for the rest of the crew, where it's like how like they are asking all these questions because we don't get anything.
I think it's also interesting that one of the possibilities he brought up is that like Lucine like fake outlawed her,
Yeah.
and, and that Tayshrin is showing up and like guiding them
Does
along.
he
And like,
walk among us?
on the one hand, I do not think that's true. Maybe Lucine fake outlawed her. I'm not sure about that. We'll never know because of what happened to Lucine in Return of the Crimson Guard rip. But they've done that. So it's like so plausible. Because they did that with Dujek. They had Tayshrin like hiding in Dujek's army while
Right.
Dujek's army was outlawed, and they had Tayshrin like going behind the scenes to meet with Quickben and Tavor and Fiddler and a couple other people in House of Chains. And so like that's been a theme in the books of like this like fake like, oh, we're on bad terms with the Empress, you know.
Okay. I think Banishar kind of justifies his existence in the books in these chapters. Because prior to this, I don't think he really did. But his perspective, I think, is really interesting here. And I like the perspective he provides on Drek, the Worm of Autumn. And Drek is one of the gods I actually want to know more about. Probably one of the cooler gods in Malazan.
Read the Path to Ascendancy.
Yeah, like deeply linked with time and rot and decay and all these things that generally you wouldn't think that humans would want to worship. Kind of like Hood, except for in some ways more depressing.
And yet still willing to kill all of their priest and priestess to gain some modicum of control.
Yeah,
especially in these end game times.
it's so interesting. And Drek is on her way, tunneling through the fabric of reality, it seems, to come and bear witness. I think it's a really cool little setup there. Hearing you falling asleep.
I think the main thing is Tavor could have just come out and told everybody her exact plan, but she didn't. And I guess that is a tactic that she wanted to employ, where she had, I give you a piece of information and then everybody freaks out about it, right? Because basically, and we come in like in the midst of this, where it's like she wants the bone hunters to march alone across the glass desert. And everybody else is like, no, we're here for you. She could have just told them, like, yeah, don't worry, you're going to have your role to play, and this is what you're going to do. Right. She kind of just like drips, and like have them arrive at the conclusion on their own.
Yeah. So she has a curious mixture of lack of faith and total faith in the people around her. And it makes sense to me because, okay, so when she's telling the bone hunters these things, obviously she can't tell them in House of Chains at the start what she's gonna do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she can't tell them at the end of House of Chains what she's gonna do. And like at all these points, like when she's giving them more information, it makes sense for her to be giving the information that she's giving, because otherwise it's entirely possible that they would all desert her. And so she's trying to play the balancing act of like, okay, what do I tell them so that they keep following me? And what do I keep from them so that they're able to keep marching on?
And I think that absolutely makes sense. It's just that at this point, right, in the book, where it's all these leaders and her allies are here and they're like, no, we're here to march with you. And all she says is, you have a big role to play. I rely on you. It's not that I don't trust you, right? In fact, it's the opposite. But she doesn't just tell them, because you guys are going to, go to the spire and free the heart and blah, blah, blah. And I think one way to read this is she needed to help them process. And if she just flat out said it, like there would be a lot more resistance. She needed to build up that desire to help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like
manipulation tactic.
because they were all freaking out.
Do.
Yeah, they were all freaking out. Like you're sending the bone hunters to their death, right?
Yeah.
And we're willing to help. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
letting that feeling savor and sink in, so that when she finally tells them what they're gonna do, they're like, okay.
Yeah, and also like the mission that they're on, like they totally would have rejected it if they'd known about it any sooner. It's like, oh, you're gonna be sent to free the crippled god. What? The crippled god? This guy that's been making the entire world miserable for
Yeah.
thousands of years? It's like telling like someone's like, okay, we're gonna send you over to break Hitler out of jail. You know?
Oh god. Yeah. I do appreciate that she finally acknowledges the falling jade asteroid things.
Mhm.
So, yay.
Yeah, it's impending doom that everyone's kind of aware of, but people just are choosing not to think about it because it's kind of too scary.
Yeah. The part that okay, so I put in our DMs that I kind of want Fiddler to die.
Yeah, what the hell?
That's a real heel turn from your previous statements on this.
Honestly, I thought the same thing, but way
Okay.
before.
Okay. So
My
I love
thoughts at the
Fiddler.
end of the Siege of Egaton were Fiddler survived this. That means he's going to die at the end of book 10. That was my.
Well,
Yeah, but you didn't want him to die.
Well, if it was a good, tragic death with lots of catharsis.
Okay.
so I love Fiddler, and it will break my heart if he dies. Okay. But here's the thing, he has all of these people right now because now he's captain. And Fiddler says, those lizards took a nasty bite out of us. In fact, they pretty much did us in. Look around. We're what's left. The smoke over Pale's thinning. And here we are. It's my past pulling me right round till I'm facing the wrong way. You think you feel like shit? Try standing in my boots, boys and girls. And this is the moment where I had that thought, like, Fiddler, I kind of want you to die because he is in so much pain. Like, he has seen so many of his friends die and he keeps on surviving. And he's like, and we've seen this with when he had a release. I think it was in like Dead House Gates, maybe, or Memories of Ice. I can't remember. And I think he just wants to be at peace and he wants to join them. And as much as I love him and I would love to have him have more screen time and survive because surviving seems like it would be a victory, is it a victory for him? You know?
I think you will like the end of Fiddler's arc. Is all I will
Okay.
say of that.
I agree.
It's a good way to put it. I was trying to think of how to say that.
I like those. Those are very good thoughts, though. I think.
I'm not advocating for suicide, just to be clear. I understand now. Like, I feel like it's more of me being selfish of wanting him to continue to survive, but if he's going to be in so much pain, then I'm just like, oh my god, okay. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unrelated, but this book has 2 epilogues.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So I had a prediction at this point in the book, or around this point, might have been a little later. I thought that Ikariam's Warrens would replace the old Warrens, and that like Carabas being unleashed would be part of that transition. Like the
Mm.
Ototero would like mess up Curl's Warrens and it would like usher in like Ikariam's Warrens like taking over in their place.
I think we're going to talk
Yeah.
about anybody probably needing to be put out of their misery at this point. It's got to be Ikariam, right? Poor guy cannot catch a break.
Or Sin.
No, don't disagree. Hard disagree.
I just
Right,
want to give
so
them all hugs.
people who are living in constant pain and hatred maybe a little happier if they're put out of their misery, but Sin doesn't count.
So Ikariam has been doing this for how long? Sin is still like she's still a child, right?
Yeah. And it's very important to never mind.
If we're talking about mercy killings for children, I think it's a much more fraught thing. Let's say.
Than ancient elders.
Yeah, ancient elders who have committed a lot of genocide in their lives, unintentional or not, you know? Like, in terms of the people who have caused the most suffering in the world of Malazan, like, Ikariam is gonna be, if he's not at the top, he's very close to the top.
Has he caused the most suffering or just the most death? So if there's like
Okay. I guess it depends if you consider your entire people to be slaughtered as suffering. I would, but I can
Well, they're all
see what
dead,
you're
What if nobody's left?
like.
There's no suffering
It's
there.
still a horrible
no one
way
to
to
suffer.
die, right?
Oh
I don't
dear.
know. If it's
I guess it depends on
instant,
how fast it is.
It's
if I
not
died
instant though,
instantly,
right?
I'd be
Like
pretty happy.
there's we know from like Dead House Gates, like at some point, like he's just like going through cities, and like it took like sometimes a long time for those cities to actually get destroyed. And when those cities were getting destroyed, like Talani and Master were like just throwing themselves at him, like in a desperate attempt to get him to stop, and just like it just doesn't stop, So you just
Oh, I somehow missed all those details.
a lot of people trying desperately to get him to stop killing them, and watching their friends die and whatever. We get like a small taste of that at the end of Bone Hunters, like the barest fraction of what he must have been like when he was destroying cities in this continent of 7 cities, right?
I don't know, I think everyone deserves a mercy killing. Just let the Fulcral cell take over.
Oh my god.
Or the wolves. The wolves
I
might
don't
be...
even know what kind of disclaimers or warnings we need to put on this episode because
all of
this-
them.
Genocide apologia, like
Suicide, rape.
suicide arguments that some people like, I don't know, it's intentional dehumanization.
all I have to say is like, I hope that the listeners understand and won't take what we say out of context and
I'll take what you say out of context for them.
okay. And know that this is, at least for me, this is me processing as I'm reading this. And there are a lot of really tricky topics and lots of different views on all of these topics. And you're probably going to disagree with a lot or some of what we say. We each disagree with each other. And sometimes I disagree with myself. So I guess that's the best disclaimer I can give.
That is a good disclaimer, yes. Yeah, like I think that anybody who's reading this series in good faith has to understand that, like, if you're comprehending what's on the page, you have to understand that Steve is also trying to work these things out. Or like this is like he's obviously trying to work through these issues, and the readers are meant to try and work through these issues as well. And I think there is a large degree of humility that you have to come to when reasoning about these things, and you can't just think, oh, I have the answer. Anybody who disagrees with my answer, because my answer is obviously right, is a dumb, evil person. Like, those kinds of people, I think, are falling into the same traps as the actual villains of the series.
Can you just put that disclaimer part at the beginning of the episode?
The beginning of the episode. I mean, if they're reading the series, then like we have to have these conversations. Like, you can't. Well, okay, you can not have these conversations, I guess, but
I feel like
I thought it was really cool when they went boom and like all the lizards died, and then the big white people with the limbs. That was neato.
The white people are definitely the most morally pure in this series, I think.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is I am going out on a limb here saying all these things because it could definitely be taken the wrong way.
Yep.
Can we conclude? That concludes this episode. If you want to join the read along and or contribute listener questions, check us out in the Legendarium's Discord. You can find the link at thelegendarium.com. Also follow us on Twitter at GreenTeaPod for updates and fun times. Check out the Legendarium podcast for Wheel of Time, Cosmere, Learn These content, and so much more. Thank you to our panelists, Ashman and Janet, and I'm your fan. Until next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.